take away the economy from those who rigged it. As I see it, class warfare, the only resort to right wing doom. It's worth it. How to talk to your right wing relatives, friends, and neighbors, and other books written by Egberto Willis. Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willis. Good morning, Houston. Good morning, Harris County. Good morning to the great state of Texas, and good morning to Northeast Texas, Southeast Texas, Northeast Louisiana, Southeast Louisiana, every corner and nook that our 100,000 watt transmitter permeates its signal. Good morning to the rest of the world, those who receive us through the internet, that magical thing that allows us all to communicate worldwide on that great, great, big, wide net. Unfortunately, too often controlled by a plutocracy, which means at some time could they have us in their hand? I don't know. We may talk a little bit about that. We may be able to take a look at that. We'll see. But anyhow, folks, we are going to have a great program for you today. Remember, this is your show. That's why you can call 713-526-5738 at any time. And when we are able to break, we definitely get to you. But again, you can change the direction of this show as you like. Anyway, let's go to the studio where resides our geniuses, los genios favoritos, mis hermanos, my brothers.
Good morning, Egberto. It's another fine day here at the radio. Expecting some severe weather coming through about 6:30 or so, so the forecast tells us. I would like to have a job where I'm wrong 50% of the time and still keep my job, but I can't afford to do that. So, good morning, Perth, Australia. Why the heck not?
Why the heck not?
Hey, here's Jack over here. He's got some. Hey, looks like you got about three-quarters of a page of wisdom here.
If you call it that.
Well, we could call it prattle, but we're going to call it wisdom.
Okay, all right. I agree. Good morning, Egberto. How are you?
Good morning, my brother. Let's have your wisdom because you know we love it here.
Yeah, I was reading your piece this morning on Jasmine, so it's kind of what came out. The government is supposed to protect the people from corporate abuses, but our neoliberal politicians on the right and on the left seem all too willing to just sell the people out to the corporation. The Democratic Party and unions are pro-labor. The Republican Party is pro-corporation to the point where it becomes fascism. How do you trust a politician that is so obviously corrupted by dark corporate money that you can't trust the decisions they make are in the true interest of the people? Where are their loyalties?
Well, we know what their loyalties are. The
Yeah,
almighty dollar and power.
yeah.
I mean, just I cruise Facebook a lot, to see what's going on with some of my friends, and one of them posted. He says, "When your desire to stay in power and be corrupt exceeds the power of your care for the people, there's something seriously wrong."
Seriously wrong.
Now, January 6th does come to mind. I just don't know why, but yeah,
No kidding.
we're not going to change. We're not going to change the direction of your show today. We feel like it, but we're not going to. So you go ahead and take the rest.
Well, somehow you always do because you guys represent the base of the United States anyway, and it always triggers something.
You mean
Good
the poor
morning.
people?
No, 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 no,
We
no. I mean,
represent the
I
poor
mean,
people. We work here.
we
I'm
represent
a
the people.
hobo with beans.
A hobo with means. I like that. A hobo with a car.
I like hobo
I'm a
with meat.
hobo with
But
a
what I
car.
can tell you, Jack, is you make a mean burrito, man. That's all I ever remember. You
Oh
make a
yeah.
mean burrito. So
Ah,
what can
I
I
cook
say?
for Howard all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I always bring
Oh,
cook a
so
pot of
Howard
stuff.
knows it. Yeah.
I do know it.
We're gonna have to get Jack to drive from his back roads again and come out here to the lake so we can sit down and have a chat mano a mano again with the expectation that a burrito comes along.
Chicken leg tacos, baby. Chicken leg tacos.
Oh,
Ooh,
chicken leg
that sounds
tacos the
good.
next time. I love that. Anyway, folks, let's get busy. Anyway, title of the show today is, and let me get to the screen, which I had up and moved, is Parasites Like Elon Musk Can't Save Us. And Jasmine Khadem, a Gen Z community organizer, speaks. And I think I'm going to start the show with that interview. Hopefully, we can get to Elon next. But I was so impressed with this Gen Z young lady. Somebody, another activist, called me up and said, "Look, Egberto, you need to interview this woman." And one of the reasons I wanted to do it is I think she's an example that first of all, Gen Zs are who she is. And the one thing I so admire with Gen Z over, let's say, the Gen X's or the baby boomers, and I straddle those two fences, I hate it. But when I say I hate it, the reason I hate it is not I'm not speaking about those who have moved us forward. I'm talking about the particular group in that group that bought into the neoliberal stuff we talk about all of the time. The Gen Zs don't fall for it at all, at all. And they are in your face. It gets a lot of people upset about it, but they know what they want and they know what we've done to them, and we've done a whole lot to make their lives a lot more difficult than our lives were. And sometimes when we look in the mirror, it's hard to look at ourselves and say that, we made the life for the next generation much more difficult. Too many of us, what's the biggest oxymoron? When you hear something like the Reagan Democrat. You know, if you were a Reagan Democrat, I think atonement is necessary, because what happened is we had those policies, and it occurred over time. We have made life so difficult for the younger millennials, for the Gen Zs, because now they are cleaning up our mess. Now they're the ones paying exorbitant amount of monies for student loans, the kind of stuff that many of us who like to preach about, we paid off our loans. I paid off my loan in 10 years, right? Everybody likes to preach how much they paid off their loan, but they never say, like, well, our loans compared to what these guys have to get, the cost that they pay for school compared to what we had to get is so much different. So when you see them apathetic, when you see them think that they just don't want to engage, and we wonder why some of them don't vote, etc. Understand that unless folks know they're going to make a difference, folks don't engage. This woman here is powerful because she has the message. She message that I think, not I think, she has the message that I know most young people would listen to, and because who the messenger is, her being the messenger makes a huge difference. So I want you to listen to this young lady, and after that we'll come back and take calls, and we'll go through Musk if we can, etc., etc., etc. So without any further ado, here is Jasmine Khadem. She has a background in community organizing. In college, she was a student body president of the University of Houston, where she organized for DEI programs in the wake of the BLM movement. Many of those reforms have now been rolled back because of her fascist state legislature. Now she is organizing the TEA takeover and against anti-immigrant legislation like SB4. She firmly believes that the Democratic Party is the working people's party and wants the party to be more representative of the majority of people who make up the party. She says, we are younger, we're more left wing, and exhausted by the political status quo. She decided to run for the State Democratic Executive Committee, the SDEC, to make sure she is a more progressive voice in the party. And I would add to that a young voice. Jasmine, Khadem. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Did I? Wow.
Yes, it's Khadem Gonzalez, but yes.
Okay. Okay, they only put Khadem, so it's Jasmine Khadem Gonzalez. Okay, got it.
Yes.
Así que hablas español?
Sí.
Oh, perfect. All right, great. Anyway, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, hi, I'm Jasmine. I am a lifelong Houstonian, and I'm also a progressive community organizer.
And let me see, you're a community organizer. Whenever we say somebody's a community organizer, right, that has a whole lot of different connotation. Like, are you just running around with the community, but are you doing something substantive? And I know you're doing something substantive. So, while the right and many of the neoliberals, even in the Democratic Party, sort of have a disdain for community organizers because they're really getting people power. What you're doing is that much more important. So tell me a little bit about what you've done.
Gotcha. So I ran for student body president when I was in university. And at the time, I ran on trying to expand mentorship programs. Now we call that DEI, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion. Back then, They were just mentorship programs. And so at the time, we were talking about, well, how do we make these programs more accessible to students? How do we get them to know that these programs even exist? And then after SB 17 passed, all of those got rolled back. So the DEI centers were essentially shuttered. The LGBTQ center was also completely shut down. And none of these institutions fought back. In fact, what my university, that would always say that it draws its strength from its diversity, was one of the first universities to actually close these down in the state of Texas. And so we as students had to rely on our own grassroots organizing to then be in community with each other and be able to continue to have some of these mentorship programs kind of unofficially, because we could not rely on these institutions to be on the front lines to fight for us. So we have always had to rely on ourselves and our own grassroots organizing. So the political establishment might have this disdain for this community organizing, but we don't have a choice but to do it because they aren't doing their jobs for us.
Tell me a little bit about the law, because you use the SB, I forgot what it said, SB 17, you actually use the law. Tell the audience what it was all about and why is it that you had to come out and fight it so hard and do it on your own?
Right. So SB 17 essentially got rid of all of our diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Really because of racism. That's really why. And because the GOP and the Republicans are using kind of race and critical race theory and all these things that they really don't understand as a way to kind of fearmonger and collect support for their base. But these kind of legislations, they have a very real impact on people and on students. And so in this case, we lost a long list of mentorship programs completely. There was programs for Black students, for Latino students, for LGBTQ students to be able to kind of like have more mentorship. I didn't have a Latino professor until I think I was a junior, and I minored in Mexican American studies. That was the first time that I ever saw somebody who was a Latina, who looks like my family members, who was in a position of power, and also was somebody who could be a mentor to me, who understood what it's like to be a working class person, studying in university, because it was very similar to her own experience. And that was the first time I'd ever experienced that. And I had to minor in Mexican American studies in order to even have access to that. And a lot of these programs are being cut by the school. And, I'm not on the forefront of organizing, against SB 17, but I am trying to be in community with other organizers to make sure that we still meet with these students who are still at university. I have graduated, and make sure that they still have support and they know that we, as, outside community members, we can try to be those mentors for them, since the school isn't really letting that happen anymore.
I consider you on the forefront of SB 17 because you're doing what the job that the destruction of that SB 17 cause is actually doing. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Bel Air High School. So something about me is that my parents, they're both immigrants. And so we moved around a lot within the city of Houston. My dad is a teacher. My mom worked as a custodian, and so we were working class growing up. But my parents, I've never lived in a house. I've always lived in kind of like apartment complexes. And so because my dad was a teacher, he wanted me to go to, these good schools. So we would move around to try to get, try to get me into good schools. And I think it's kind of a shame that we have to do that. It kind of just speaks to the inequity that we have in our public education system.
Even within one system.
Within one system, right? Within HISD, we know that folks who live in poorer zip codes, more working class zip codes, more Black and brown zip codes are not going to get the same quality of education as those who might live in more wealthy zip codes. So we have this kind of divide between working class people and the kinds of rights that they have access to and the kind of education that they have access to, and wealthy people and the kinds of rights and resources that they have access to. So I was lucky that my parents were able to do that, but of course, like when you grow up working class, you realize you kind of get that class consciousness. Once you grow up, you're like, your friends are asking you, well, why aren't you buying anything at the Scholastic Book Fair? And you're like, well, because I don't have any money to spend on, a bunch of books, which makes it even worse now that the TEA has taken over our school district. They have shut down libraries and fired librarians who, I mean, if I can't go and afford, going to Barnes and Noble and buying like all these, nice books, I should at least be able to have that access in school libraries. And I was a kid who's frequented the school library all the time. And it's just a shame that these kids now in these like taken over schools by the state of Texas, that they're not going to have access to that. And I think anybody who says that they're on the forefront of education, who is shutting down schools or who is shutting down libraries, certainly doesn't know what they're talking about.
Interestingly, you brought up a concept that I want to talk about. But before that, let's interspace this with what you're running for, first of all, which is the SDEC chair. Tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll finish some more conversation thereafter.
Yeah, so I am running for the State Democratic Executive Committee, or SDEC. I want to be a more progressive voice in the Texas Democratic Party. And so what the SDEC does is that they're essentially the link between the state party and then local communities. So they control budget, they tailor messaging to communities, and they know when important legislation is being passed. And so they can tell the people on the ground. And, I decided to run because I do think that the Democratic Party is the working people's party. And I want the party to be more representative of the people who make it up, what we want as progressives. And I guess like what that means, the difference between progressives like myself, and I think the majority of the people who should be making up the Democratic Party and the status quo, is that we believe in human rights rather than privileges. So we believe that healthcare is a human right. We believe that education is a human right. We believe that housing is a human right. I mean, we believe in the right to clean air and water. These aren't things that you earn, but you have a right to, that you are entitled to just by being a person who lives in the US. And I think right now you see a very clear disconnect between the things that we want as progressives and as young people, as working class people, and what the party status quo wants. And the problem with that is that if we want to fight back, as the Democratic Party does, against this rising tide of fascism in not only our city and our state, but across the country, then we have to make sure that the Democratic Party is the working people's party, because we don't have another choice, because we will lose that fight if we don't prepare for it, if we don't change the party and make it more progressive.
One of the things that a lot of the older folks don't get in the progressive movement, those of us that are older and progressive, we know it because we've been preaching this for decades. But a lot of times they hear all that you've just said, and they think what you want is a whole, you want to have a population of freeloaders. That isn't the case, is it?
No, not at all. I think, there is this weird misconception that if you give people healthcare, or if you give people like a living wage, then they're not going to work anymore, which is ridiculous because, more affluent folks, they have a lot, yet they're still working. Because it's not about, people aren't going to just stop working once their basic needs are met. Like, people want to continue to work because it gives them like a sense of, satisfaction and purpose. Exactly. And then they also, some people might want to travel all over the world and work a little bit harder so they can afford to travel, or so they can afford to even have a family. I mean, the Republicans like to always talk about how, young people don't want to have children. Well, young people, I don't know if I'll ever afford a house. To be fair, my parents never afforded a house. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford a house. I don't know if the rest of Gen Z is ever going to be able to afford a house, let alone like afford to have children. And so really, if they want to fix some of our problems, maybe it's time to start giving us, paid vacation and paid sick leave so we can actually spend the time with our families. Right now, they just want us to work until we die, work for somebody else to get rich until we die. And I don't think that's a fulfilling life for us. And I don't think that that's a way that we can make our society, a better one, a more equitable one.
What I love about Gen Z is you're not scared to tell the truth. And it is amazing. You made one statement there that is the economic centralization of everything that I believe in. You work for somebody else to make the profit. And then they say our economic system is based on the one who produces the most, the one who innovates the most is the one who profits the most, when in our economic system, that's not the case.
100%. I mean, we saw it in the pandemic, right?
Yes.
Who are the essential workers who our society relied on for it to function? It's folks that don't make a lot of money, and it's folks that, it's folks that don't make a lot of money. Like that, it was in they are the people who are the backbone of our entire society. Without them, we couldn't function. We used to call them essential, and now we don't want to give them sick leave. We don't want to give them health care. We don't want to give them a living wage. And it's like, well, they showed up then, and they will continue to show up now and show up better if we give people these just their basic needs to be able to survive.
You don't know. I'm right now. You have me like, my God, this is a Gen Z person speaking. Have you got to 25 yet?
I'm 25. I just turned 25.
You just turned 20. The reason I asked that is the following. You don't know how much we need you out there with the Gen Zs, and to put it bluntly, the younger millennials, to really wake folks up and understand, first of all, that they have the power to do it if they decide to enforce the power that they have. Gen Z plus millennial equal the largest voting bloc in this country if they choose to do so. If they choose to do so. And having somebody like yourself out there pushing that button, I think will take us, and I'm not talking about old folks jumping into the barrios or the ghettos or the wealthy places or whatever and trying to get these young people to vote. I mean, you guys getting out there and doing the work and say, hey, this is a reason that we're going to demand that those old farts out there do this. In other words, you
right.
can
and
demand it.
I think, yeah. And the only way that we can really do that is if, we organize around something that isn't just, not like, oh, it's not the other guy, like it's not Trump, so you have to vote. Like that's an ineffective strategy. I think organizing against fascism is really important. Right. I think that folks should be organizing against fascism. And I think that Trump poses a huge existential threat to our democracy. 100%. We've already seen it, but something else is like, if we want people to actually go out there and vote, just fighting against like this boogeyman isn't really enough. You have to actually run for something. You have to give us something. And, right. We have a lot that we don't have right now. There's a lot that we don't have right now. Like we don't have healthcare. I think a lot of young people, they literally just want some of their basic rights to be met. And we want to maybe, even if we want to be a little bit more forward thinking, let's like change the relationship that we have with work. Let's have a 4-day work week. Like, I don't think that that's the most radical idea in the world. I think some companies already do it, but of course it's going to be affluent folks who have access to those kind of policies, right? They rely on, these companies to give them, unlimited PTO. But what about the rest of us? So we need our government to step in to give that right to the rest of us, so we can have that time to be, with our families and with our friends, and so we can have more of a work-life balance rather than this grind that I think people are just exhausted with.
The best ideas are coming out from our young people. And the reason why is they have no fear. They don't have no fear, and they're not, and the indoctrination that most have been born with since the inception of this country has worn off. They've definitely worn off in your generation. And interestingly, when you talk about the 4-day work week, the 3-day, I'm in for a 3-day work week because there's this thing called artificial intelligence and robotics. These two things by themselves more than triple our productivity. And in doing so, if we had a 5-day work week and our productivity is triple, we can get the benefit from said productivity at the same time that we cut the work week in half. It's not all that much to ask.
100%. I'm right there with you. We shouldn't be using AI to replace art. Art should be for us. That should be for humans. Give us the time to be able to actually be creative and be artistic and give ourselves like a more purpose that isn't just, grinding all the time.
There is absolutely no disagreement there. In fact, all these things ought to be regulated to take the humanity into us. So there are certain things that requires no humanity. Art requires humanity. In fact, AI art is the stealing of the humanity of us all, right? Because what AI does, the art forms, when you do, it's picking and choosing, etc. There are forms of AI that actually is productive, increases productivity, and there's the other that can be not beneficial, but in the totality, it should reduce all of our work week to
100%.
Pretty much. Now, so becoming the SDEC chair, do you have somebody that you're running against, and how many people you're running against?
So I don't really know because people could kind of nominate themselves. It looks like kind of in person, but there's going to be two representatives for each congressional district, and I think that I've been the most active person who is running, who identifies as a woman. So I think that I'm in a good spot.
What district are you in?
And unfortunately, it's only people who are in the state convention who can vote. So I've been doing my phone banking, my due diligence to try to persuade some votes my way.
Well, let me tell you, what we really need some fresh blood in the party. The party has been stagnant for too long, and as you mentioned, the status quo should no longer be tolerated. If we want to grow the party, what we have to do is bring new ideas. We need to bring new people into the party and holding on these positions. Let me take my host hat off. As a member of the party, I refuse to take on some of these positions because I think it is time for our Gen Zs and our Gen Ys, millennials, to take care of these jobs. Now, I want you guys out there doing what needs to be done. So one of the last things I always ask, and it's, what would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
I think to end on maybe, what should young people do? What should people do to get involved? And I think everybody is an organizer. I think everybody should be an organizer. I think that if you don't know what to do in your life, if you're having, every year we have a new crop of fresh grads who I know, because I know this from experience, are having an existential crisis about what they should do in their lives for the rest of their lives. At the same time, we have people who are aging, who are being a little bit more alienated in their lives, who are becoming a little bit lonelier, other people in different stages of their lives. Maybe all their friends are having children and they haven't, and so they feel lonely. Or even older folks. Like I know seniors, they have a loneliness epidemic as well. And I think that the best way to combat that, not only for the betterment of our society, but also for the benefit of ourselves and our own mental health, is by organizing and being in community with one another. I have the great opportunity to be organizing alongside people who have been doing this for way longer than I have. Some people who have been doing this, like who are older than I am, have been doing this since like before I was even born. And I have the opportunity to learn from them. And they're the ones who give me the confidence to even be out there and be an organizer and find my voice and, not be super shy. And it's because of them that I'm able to really do this work. And so I rely on them very heavily. And I think that I think that everybody should try to be an organizer, find an organization. It doesn't have to be, within a political party. It can be an organization that, organizes outside of party politics, but maybe is still politically inclined. I think everybody should join a political organization. But even if it's not that, even just volunteering, finding something in your community that is wrong, and then finding other like-minded people who want to help solve it. I'm so lucky that I've been able to be in community with other people. And now, I don't have an existential crisis anymore because I know it doesn't matter really what I do as a job, because my purpose is to try to better the society that we live in alongside all of my fellow community members. And I think that's a very empowering thing for folks to do. So I encourage anybody, not just young people, but in any stage of your life, to try to get involved and use, your free time to solve the problems around us.
Jasmine Khadem Gonzalez. It's been my pleasure, folks. We need SDEC chairs like this. This is the kind of person that's going to revolutionize the party and put the party where it needs to be. It's been my pleasure to have you on Politics Done Right.
Thank you so much. I've really appreciated this conversation. It's so nice talking to you.
Folks, remember, I told you yesterday that we were going to bring Norman Solomon to finish the second half of the Jewish discussion that we started yesterday. But after interviewing her yesterday, I said, no, I need to bring this now. We are in difficult political times right now, and a lot of people feel disempowered, etc. This young lady at 25, I found so empowering. And notice what she said at the end. I'm not just talking about people my age, I'm talking about everybody. You see a problem, find like minded people and start working towards a problem. That is one of the other things that I liked with the person that was just elected as the SD15 senator and the SD15 Senate District 15, now Democratic candidate for that district going forward. They saw a problem. In the case of Molly Cook, she saw the problem with Interstate 45 encroaching on neighborhoods and went to Austin and fought with a group of people to solve that problem. As a healthcare nurse, she's doing the same thing, trying to take the expertise of the medical problem, the medical situation that's affecting people, and doing something about it. A lot of people are anxious. The anxiety level is high. Can that crook, that convicted convict, become the president again? Can somebody that cares so little about most become the president again by fooling so many? The answer is yes, unless. And what is the unless? Unless we do what this young lady and many others are doing, saying, I see a problem, and with this problem, I'm not going to talk about it only. I'm not going to keyboard about it only. I am going to form me a posse and engage society. We need to make this change. We need to make this change and enforce the power we have intrinsically. I mean, I, I'm excited whenever I see people that inherently others would believe were powerless. Show what the power of community can do, what the power of us getting together can do. That is powerful and that is empowering. You're already empowered. It's about using what you're already empowered to do. Brother Johnny is on line numero uno. Come on in, my brother. How are you doing? The mayor of Politics Done Right.
And you are the president, hands down, because you can read my mind in advance. My friends, you need to have this young woman back on the air live so she can interact with callers, not just me. I was surprised at the end when you said she's only 25. I thought she said she was 35, because if she was 35, she would be like my kid if I had kids. The 30 to 40-year-olds alive right now, they are the kids of the baby boomers. And when you go on YouTube and you go on these YouTube channels, just for the what they call these reaction channels to music and all, there's lots of people that age, as well as high school age kids who are very well versed in the music that we grew up with. And as a result, they understand the ethics and the morality and the dysfunction of what's going on in Washington right now. So what you do and what KPFT does, and this is another reason why we need to support KPFT, is to remind people, hey, there are a lot of people out there just down the block who are like-minded like you, but you don't know because you are encouraged to stay siloed. to live your life in quiet desperation. I've gone over this concept with other KPFT programmers over the years about people who in a subdivision not far from where I am, across the dog track, where all these new homeowners are busy fixing their house, their brand new house, and raising their little infant kids, and these mothers who are alone all day. It's that cycle repeating. And so what KPFT and what you in particular are doing is to short circuit that. So I want to congratulate you, and I want to encourage you to have this young woman back. And there's one last thing. She said something that triggered a memory of recent right-wing callers to KPFT, where they like to talk about the nanny state. Remember? The nanny state.
Yeah.
And what I say to our right-wing friends is the nanny state is a fiction. The only nannies you're going to find is in Downton Abbey and maybe in Bel Air. Because they employ women to take care of their kids while they play. Regular people, they don't have that luxury. They got to go to work, they got to cook the bacon when they get home, and they got to clean up their kids. So the nanny state only exists for the ultra wealthy who want to distract you from the fact that they enjoy the nanny state, so to speak. So there's that.
Johnny, let me tell you that you nailed it. I don't know if I see the phones are picking up, so I don't know how much of the Musk stuff I'm going to be able to go to. But the Musk stuff is going to, when I give the narrative for the Musk article that I want to carry, it's going to blow that out of the mind about the nanny state and the welfare state and all of that. Yeah, the United States is a welfare state. The only problem is those who receive the bulk of the welfare is the ones that you would least expect. But anyway, thank you so kindly, Johnny, for calling in. Mayor of Politics Done Right. You have a wonderful rest of your day, my brother.
And you, please stay safe. We need you there, along with Tom Hartman and all the other people in left-wing media. God bless you.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Donald, my brother. Donald, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning, Alberto. How are you?
I am fine, Donald. Always great to hear your voice. You are always that jolly one that I just love listening to.
Okay. I want to critique something and tell me if I'm right or wrong. What is the difference between needs and wants? Give me the definition.
Need is something that you have to have for survival. Wants is something that you just say, you know what, I would love to have that, but I don't really require that for my survival or my well-being or my comfort. That's the difference.
Okay. Well, if that lady would have young lady, which is great, awesome, change her needs to the wants to needs. She said, this is what this wants. No, this is what it needs. It's what you need. You change those few words in her statement and it would be perfect. Because they're needs. They're not wants. You need medical health care. You need time off to decompress. You need that. It's not wants. It's not their wants. It's their needs. And
Donald,
if you change that, you'll have a stronger speaking point.
You know something? I'm going to give you kudos on that, right? And let me tell you why I give you even more kudos on that. I give you even more because I know your political proclivity, okay? And that generally would not be the concept that they put out. You are a powerful man for actually saying what you just said. And with that, I'm going to just leave you with those kudos and move on to Joe. All right, brother Donald.
One other thing.
Real quick.
Don't put race in there. No race. And if somebody looked like me, you don't speak that way because you're automatically giving trigger words to the other side.
You know, the trigger word is true. That statement about trigger word is true. But eliminating race, and I don't want to go there because anytime you put race into something, a long discussion ensues. But because we have a listening audience and people that talk to each other, we can deal with that so that we can actually make a change. Identities are still important. I want to get to a time when identities, race, and gender and all of those things doesn't matter. But until that is a true statement, we have to talk about it. But Donald, I get you. Let's talk about that another time, okay?
All righty. Later.
Take care, my brother. Let's go to Brother Joe. Come on in, Joe.
We say, Berto, how are you this morning?
I'm doing fine. Talk to me, my brother.
Good, good. I would also agree with Donald about the paid time off. Everybody needs PTO. I don't care who you are or what you do. You need your time off to unwind and decompress and enjoy the fruits of your labor, whatever it
Yes,
is that you
sir.
do. But I had several other issues with your guest.
Okay.
I mean, it's every year there's a new crop of graduates that comes, and they've got all the smarts and intelligence you could ask for, but they don't yet have any experience that's useful to the company or to the world at large, right? They've been studying out of a book this whole time, and now the real lesson is to begin. Um, so I when somebody says this rising tide of fascism, right? Those are fighting words, man. And I wonder, she doesn't realize that she is part of the rising tide of fascism that's kind of has been creeping along the last 50 years. And really to me the crux of the matter is that people feel entitled to other people's labor. They think they have a right to my work, my money, my resources, just because of their color or their income or something, right? And I think that while well-intentioned, a lot of progressives are going to see very quickly that there aren't enough affluent or wealthy people around to fill the bellies of of their constituents, and so they're sooner or later they're coming after me. They're coming after you, and so that's my fear.
Okay, I want to explore some of what you said. I'm going to try to do it quickly because I want to get to the other callers as well. But I understand exactly what you just said. And if what you just said really, and by the way, that is what not only Republicans preach, I'm talking about Republican leadership here, but also if you take a look at the real core belief of neoliberals, that's what they say. That the big thing is that there are not enough rich people to cover what everybody needs or claim that they're entitled to. That's the number one things that they say. And secondly, they give the impression that people don't the natural state of people isn't to be working productively. And those two things are really false. When you hear things like we don't want to give basic income because that's going to make people freeloaders, that is not true. People want to work because it gives you dignity. Being a working person gives you dignity. Now, the interesting thing is all the negative stuff that you just spoke about, people who are think they're entitled to your labor, entitled to what you produce. That isn't the poor people or the middle class people who live under that domain. That is a corporation who thinks they're entitled to your labor at whatever they're willing to give you for that labor, whatever you are able as a non-powerful person to negotiate for. I don't want to hit this right now because it's a long subject. It's entitled to an entire show. So, what I'm going to just ask you to do is let's have this conversation again as a full program. When you see me send you a newsletter that says today we're going to be talking the employment corporate system, this is the whole show on that. Right now, though, I appreciate you listening to what the young lady had to say. And give me a quick closer. I need to jump to Jimmy.
All right, Rick Berta, you know how I close it out, man. I always say this November, let's make America great again.
I hear you, but I am, with listening to my program and being a part of the family here, because you're a part of the family. By the way, I have a MAGA family, and I'm going to play an interview of her, our discussion that I begged her to tape that we taped. I'm probably going to do that on Friday. So, I keep this stuff all in the family, so we're all family. I may have, you may actually vote differently in November. You don't know it yet, but we may actually come to some sort of a amicable, well, we are amicable already, but some sort of a thing. But anyway, Joe, thank you so kindly for calling, my brother.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too. Let's go to Jimmy. Come on in, Jimmy.
Good morning, Egberto. I enjoyed your
Good
interview
morning.
with that young lady. I want to say that everybody out there can be active. Join a group that you like the ACLU or Amnesty International or a Democratic group, and you can be active there. And you can write letters to the editor. You can write letters to your state reps. I sent a note to Representative Gene Wu yesterday urging him to be a leader in reforming solitary confinement. Texas has people in solitary confinement for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. It drives people crazy. We need to reform solitary confinement. The other big issue, I think, would be the best issue for America would be to have free tuition in public colleges. More people with more education, they make more money, they have better jobs, they make smarter decisions. That would be good for America to have more and more college graduates, and let's pay for that out of government funds so that they can increase their education and be smarter.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Jim. Let me tell you. Go ahead, Jimmy. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, everybody. I wrote a book called Active Retirement. A lot of men, especially, they've had their career, and that's it. They have nothing else to do. They ought to join local organizations. Like I'm a member of the West Houston Democrats. We have monthly meetings where we bring in candidates and other people to discuss issues. And there's others. Amnesty International has local organizations. They help reform and wars
Jimmy?
and so forth like that.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
let me tell you, I want folks to understand this, right? Some people call in here that I know personally, and anytime I hear their voices, it just warms me up. I work with Jimmy. Jimmy talks about like if he's one or two organizations. Jimmy is all over the place. Jimmy was also a board member with all of us here at the Houston Peace and Justice Center, where he's an active participant. This man, I think you probably worked more outside of your retirement age than you ever worked during work. Now, is active member of doing something positive to society. I got to move on, Jim, but I just want to tell you thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. And by the way, he's a great supporter of Politics Done Right here on KPFT as well. Anything else, Jimmy, before I jump to Brother Bart?
Yeah, got a great program here. Everybody can be active. Everybody can write letters or call their representatives.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. You have a wonderful day. Let's go to Brother Bard. Come on in, Bard.
Good morning, sir. Yes.
Good
Joe
morning,
is
sir.
right.
How you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. How are you, Alberto?
I'm doing fine. Talk to me, Bart.
Yes, the problem, like Joe said, is when you run out of other people's money. The U.S. has a big problem because they're just printing money and there's nothing to back it up. I read yesterday that Saudi Arabia is not going to trade or sell oil in U.S. dollars anymore. So that's a big problem. It's being kept really quiet. I heard about this BRICS thing. I don't know much about it, but they're going off the U.S. dollar all over the world because it's not worth anything. So we got a big problem with that. But that's not the reason I called.
Okay, but can I ask you can I interrupt you 1 second because I don't want to leave that in the air. Folks, BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And there are about 7 or 8 other countries that form that consortium to actually create another a sort of trading currency other than the US dollar. And what the reason that was created has nothing to do with the sovereign currency of the United States. It has more to do of taking that ultimate control where the United States can penalize another country who doesn't do what they say. As an example, we can tell other countries, you cannot do business with this other country. Otherwise, we'll stop you from being able to trade on the international ACH system. It's the exchange system, etc. So that's the reason for BRICS. It has nothing to do with our money not being backed by anything. Uh, Money being backed by something doesn't really make any sense. Something that we'll talk about at another time for sovereign currencies. When people say your money is backed by gold, that means nothing because you can't eat gold. Money can only be backed by the faith in the exchange. We can talk about that another time, But I just want to say, Bard, please don't sit back believing, oh, the American dollar is not backed by anything. The American dollar is backed by the most important thing. You know what that is, Bard? You. You, as an American citizen, has proven that we have a great economy, that we can do all these things. So people want to actually have something of value. And that's the value of any currency. Whenever they say it's backed by gold or something, I always found it silly that people say, oh, for every dollar we print, there's a piece of gold here. So what? There's a piece of gold. It's a metal that like anything else. But let's go to the next subject that you want, sir.
Okay, yeah, let's skip over that. That one's too deep. Let's go to. I always wanted to ask you if you think that Mr. Biden is racist for closing the border.
No, I don't. I think the border issue right now is a political thing, and I think Mr. Biden has done something that Trump did for different reasons. Trump closed the border because he said he was going to and you know what he said about those S countries, etc. As far as Biden is concerned, Biden decided that he had to be as evil in closing the border in the way he's doing it just because. Now, is the act the same as Trump? Hell yes, it's the same as Trump. Do I agree with it? Hell no. Do I understand why he's doing it politically? Yeah, I do. It's ridiculous. I mean, he's playing into the racist fear of those who have those proclivities, right? And that's the kind of politics I am trying to supersede right now, Bart. But so I mean, I know what you're trying to get out of me, and you would be right. So there would be no conflict there. It's a racist act. Yes, it is.
So why is he
Anything
doing
else?
it?
Political. I
Why,
said
yeah,
it already.
why is he trying to do it at this point in time? He just wants to get the votes.
Political. It's exactly. You just name you. We all know the game. You're a smart dude. Yes, it's political. It's because he is betting that
Okay, well,
Americans are so. He's betting. The brother is betting that doing a racist act will actually get him votes. Okay, think about that. And guess who understands that? A lot of Latino activists right now, while they're inside mad, they're keeping their mouths shut because they understand the game being played. All right. So that's where it's at. But I had to be honest with you. Is it a racist act? Yes, it is. Because if it were the border with Canada, you wouldn't have seen that. Okay.
all right. Thank you so much. Have
Thank-
a good one.
You have a good one, Bart. Let's go to. I'm going to have to restrict now to 1 minute, guys. Let's go to Brian because the phones are still full and we missed the Elon Musk story. Come on in, my brother Brian. Talk to me.
Okay, did you check into the Hunter Biden Secret Service trying to take the registration form? Did anybody check into that to prove me wrong?
I didn't check
No,
it, but I took put it this way. I took your, believe it or not, because of what you said and how you said it. I sort of took it at face value. I just think the interpretation is different than you say. But go ahead, brother.
Okay, now he's going to trial. On the jury is, guess what? A Secret Service agent, an ex-Secret Service agent. What are the odds of that in Washington, Delaware? Guess who his wife is?
I have no idea.
Or active spouse, what I understood. A active Secret Service agent is the man's spouse. What are the odds in Wilmington, Delaware, of a Secret Service agent being on Hunter Biden's trial?
I think it's very good. I think it's actually a very good odd that would occur.
You have a better
because
you have a better chance of winning the lottery.
It's a very small place, and that area in the country has a whole lot of those types of government workers in their fold. So I don't think it's shocking at all. But Brian, let me jump to Harry and then Johnny again. Okay. But you call in every day.
Yeah, of course. I'll call.
Thank you. Let's go to Harry. Come on in, Harry. You only got about 45 seconds now, Harry.
Hello, Bert. I just want to comment on Joe's closer. We are not going to make America great again if you have a fascist and Donald Trump elected, if you have a Republican-controlled Senate by Mitch McConnell, and you have a Republican-controlled House by Mike Johnson. What you're going to have is you're going to have a corrupt government, and you're going to have Republicans want to exploit average Americans, and you're going to want to, and then what they'll also do is they will, they'll just take America backwards, and Project 2025 will be in full force. So,
got you, Harry. I gotta go. I gotta go. I just got a message. I gotta go. Let's go to Johnny. Thank you, my brother. Johnny, real quick. Johnny, got 15 seconds.
Right. What Hey Joe forgets, doesn't realize, refuses to accept, is that it's not a question of too few the wealthy people and too many empty mouths to feed who want free stuff. It's the other way around. They're taking all the money from the people that they employ. They're not paying them correctly.
And that's what Johnny, and that's what we're gonna Johnny, I gotta cut you. That's what we're gonna talk about, Johnny, on another program, but you're absolutely right. I want to welcome Woven Threads on the chat, Mary Shell on this chat, Eric Hayes on the chat. And also Woven Dark Noise on the chat. And Dark Noise, tell your husband to engage. Give them this program and tell them be a part of this program as well. We'll talk about it. But right now I'm going to jump to the studio before I give my closing words. Studio.
Oh, nothing here for me. Jack, I think he's got some notes here.
Well, to resist fascism, you're going to have to quit paying the people that are enslaving you.
That's right. And I'm going to quit paying my bills right now, today. That
Well,
AT&T phone company, yeah.
Yeah, again, crazy. Anyway, folks, and they say that the government is always doing things wrong. What happened to the private sector? Isn't that the private sector? Anyway, folks, look, I love you all, callers and listeners alike, my brothers in the studio alike. Look, folks, we were to cover that stuff about Elon Musk, and I want to cover it. I'm probably going to have to do it another day. I'm going to get the author of that stuff on. Let me tell you, go to politicsandright.com/newsletter to read that particular article. It's telling. Anyway, folks, I got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this, baby. I am what? Out.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. Is the U.S. Supreme Court aiming to take yet another chop at the 1965 Voting Rights Act? An Arkansas redistricting case has been sent back to a lower court after last week's new rules making it harder to prove racial gerrymandering. In another case, the Federal Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in November 2023 that individual voters could not bring a private right of action for voting rights cases. Instead, such cases could only be brought by the U.S. Justice Department. A request to rehear the case was denied in January. Now, the U.S. Supreme Court has ordered the redistricting case to be reheard by a 3-judge district court panel to apply new standards handed down in Alexander versus South Carolina NAACP.